morning, everybody. Welcome to Livewire TV. We are a part of Livewire Media, where we do corporate photography, videography, and video marketing. Livewire TV, we are all about interviewing experts within the business space, marketing, and mindset as well, to really help people overcome the challenges that they're facing in today's quarantine situation. So, with me today, I've got all the way from New Zealand, actually, which is amazing. So I believe it's 11 p.m. your time over there, isn't it?
It is 11 p.m. here, that's right.
So I have got the amazing Giyora, who is all about helping people to get over the fear of sales and overcome their challenges and mental blocks around sales and ultimately sell with simplicity. Giyora, I'm going to hand it over to yourself to give us a bit of a brief introduction as to who you are and tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for that, Rohini, and thank you for the opportunity. It's really interesting because I like to say that I got into sales by accident. It didn't really. I got into sales. I keep on telling people, and people laugh, that I got into sales simply because my wife told me to. And from a physical and a business and logical point of view, for me to get into sales was a very strange thing. So when I talk about my sales career, I talk about selling real estate here in Auckland. And when I got into sales, it was into selling real estate. It was strange because I didn't really know many people here in Auckland. I lived in New Zealand for about 4 years, I think, before getting into it. I have not done any sales before, never sold anything, didn't know what to do, didn't understand the concept of selling. I am also naturally an introverted and a shy person, and being in sales is all about being in front of people and talking to people. So it took me a while to learn, to adjust, to grow, and to figure out what sales is all about, and to build a career, a good successful career in it. So it was an interesting journey, a very interesting journey.
Yeah, I can imagine. So tell us a bit about that journey, because well, for starters, I know you're not from New Zealand originally. So how did you get to New Zealand?
Right. We're going that far back. Obviously, I got on an airplane and flew over. I was born and raised in Israel, and it was in my younger years, traveling the world. I decided that I wanted to go and live in Canada. That was my dream, to live in Canada. And I remember traveling in Canada and hearing a couple of women on the bus talk about the fact that one of them was Canadian, the other one was visiting, and she was traveling in Canada, and she told the other lady that she's in Canada visiting her son, who immigrated, funny enough, from the UK to Canada, and he was a chef, and it was very easy to immigrate as a chef because it was under skilled migration. And I thought, that's interesting. That's what I will do as well. And so a couple of weeks later, I was back in Israel, enrolled into a hospitality school to learn how to cook, became a chef, started working in a few restaurants. And in one of those restaurants, I became friend with one of the chefs who have left to travel the world with her partner. And a couple of years later, I got that's pre-email dates. I got a letter from her saying, "Hey, look, we're in New Zealand. We have a small restaurant. Would you be interested in coming over and seeing if you would be able to manage it for us?" Young, independent, single, packed my bag, moved over, liked the country, was able to immigrate and stay there, and obviously changed profession over time into sales. Yeah, so that's the journey of getting over here to New Zealand.
And you focus specifically on helping people in sales within the property sector, don't you? But I know that the skills are really transferable.
Yeah, yeah. So I focused, I sold real estate here for about 11 years, almost 11 years, in a very competitive market. And after that, had the opportunity to start training real estate salespeople for one of the biggest real estate companies in New Zealand. And that led to the continuing. So I focus on real estate, but you're absolutely right. The concept and the principles are very similar. Obviously, every industry has got some unique things that need to be adjusted to. But the concept of sales, of really working with people, understanding people, getting to know them, seeing and figuring out what the issues and the problems are, so we can help them. That is very, very similar throughout the world of sales and business.
And I want to get into those sort of tips and strategies a little bit later on. But
Mm-hmm.
so let's fast track a bit. So you're young, you're in New Zealand, you're single, you're ready to mingle. What made you think I want to go into real estate sales?
Nothing. I was again, as I said, it was it kind of happened by mistake, with my wife telling me to do so. I single mingling, met my wife at the time. She was my partner, and I was still working in restaurants, but got fed up with it, and started looking at different things. And she said, "Look, I think you should go into real estate. I think you will be good at it because people like you." And I didn't really have any way to counter that. I thought, well, if that's what she says, let's give it a go. It looks a pretty easy thing. All you have to do is go talk to a few people, drink some coffees with some people, and get paid for it. So I got into it, and obviously the reality of the industry is completely different.
I was going to say, like, was it easy to start building a career in sales and real estate?
No, it's incredibly tough industry. So there's there's kind of two level or two different types of people that go into the industry. One is people who are um, extremely well networked, so that they lived in the same area, or they've been in business, and they have a lot of contacts and connections, and they go into the industry, and it is slightly easier for them because they already know people and people already know them, and the trust is there. It's easier to work through there. For me, as I said, with my personality, shy, introverted, not knowing a lot of people, it was extremely tough, and I had to build my business through going out, knocking on doors, making cold calls, and building it that way. So extremely tough.
So with that in mind, then, what were your biggest challenges around effectively selling with simplicity? What were
Yeah.
your challenges?
I think for me the biggest challenge, and it took me about 3 years to figure it out, is the understanding that in high value sales, it's slightly different. If I'll go and I'll try and sell candies door to door, or a very fire engine outside of your house, or try and sell, I don't know, a bottle of cleaners at $10 or £10 for somebody. At that point, sales is about trying to make the sale on the spot. But when you sell higher value items, especially houses or say cars, it's about the understanding that the people that you meet today will give you their business and will buy from you, but when the
Yeah.
time is right for them, and the time will usually happen in the future. So it is about making the connection today, and then staying in touch and continue to stay in touch and providing service, so they think about you, they remember you, and when the time is right, they go, right, that's the person we want to use because we remember him, and they stayed in touch with us, and that's when the business happened. And
So
when
so
I
building relationships really was your major block within the beginning, wasn't it?
it was not understanding that this is how it happens. I would go in and I would say, and I'm going to make fun of myself here with that story. I would go in and I would knock on doors and I'll say, hi, do you want to sell? Is there anything I could help? And people will say no. And I will more or less at that point say, okay, that's fine. And I will move on to the next door.
Yeah.
So it was, for me, it was all about, initially in the first year, it was about, hey, can I get business from you? No, okay, thank you so much. Move on to the next door.
Right.
And I remember I door knocked for about a year. I would go out almost every day. I would knock on doors and ask for business, and there wasn't business, and people will say no. And I got quite comfortable and quite good with receiving the no, and I would understand how to deal with it. And after about a year, I knocked on the door, on a person's door, and an old gentleman opened the door, and I stood there and said, hi, I'm Gary from such and such company. Just wanted to say hello, see if you might be looking at selling your house. And the guy said yes. And I had no idea what to do. I for a year, I got no's, and I was pretty good with no's. And when he said yes, I kind of blanked, and it took me about 10 seconds to try and think what to say. But in the end, I was able to get the door. But it was really funny. I really focused initially on the business right now, not building relationships.
Yeah. I mean, door-to-door sales is tough. I mean, I used to do that as well, and you meet some interesting characters, but I think from a personal point of view, it really develops your mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It makes you a little bit tougher mentally because of it. But I think one of the things that I keep on telling salespeople, because salespeople in general are petrified of going out of and knocking on doors or making cold calls. And one of the things that is really, really interesting, and the UK might be a little bit different, but I would say that in most cities it will be similar, is that even though there is a rejection, people will say no to you. Most of the time, people are actually quite nice about the way that they say it. So people will say, "Oh, thank you, no, we're not interested," or "Look, we don't want to sell." But very rarely will somebody slam the door in my face or be quite nasty to me. And so as long as you learn to focus about, hey, people are actually nice, then the mind changes and you go, all right, it's just another conversation with another person, and then everything changes.
Absolutely. You mentioned earlier that selling is not about saying, hey, do you want to buy my stuff? It's about building relationships, building trust, and getting to know that person. But as an introvert, well, for anyone in general, but I think I myself am an introvert, so I really kind of found this a bit of a challenge in the beginning to just like want to talk to people, let alone like build relationships with them. And yet selling is all about relationships now, isn't it? Even if you are going down the direct and hard sell route, you're still effectively building some sort of a relationship with them. But there's a strategy, I believe, around building quality relationships, about building that trust and not building a relationship with a hidden agenda. Can you give us some tips around how the viewers that are watching right now can actually build quality relationships, build trust that's actually going to help them to either grow their business, grow their client base, or even just grow their relationships or network?
Yeah, I think the word that you used, trust, is the key to that. Because trust is everything in sales, and again, especially the higher you go in price, the more trust there needs to be. So you build the relationship not so much about. And I'll take it a step back. A lot of times when I interview people who want to get into the real estate industry right now, one of the things that I will hear every once in a while is, hey, look, my friends told me that I should go into the real estate industry because I have the gift of the gab. I'm good with people. Like, I can talk a lot. But you don't build relationships when you talk a lot. You build relationships, and I think that's where people like you, like myself, who are introverts, were actually better, where we will ask questions and be quiet and listen. And so it is about that. It is about asking questions. It's about getting to know the people and giving the right advice rather than going, you have to buy this, or this is the right product for you, or you must do it right now, whether it's right or not. It's about going every once in a while and saying, hey, look, I actually think that this specific house is not the right house for you, or I actually think that for you to sell the house right now with what you have might not be the best time for you, and I recommend that you wait. And if you do that, if you give people the right advice, and yes, once in a while you will lose business because somebody else will come in and convince them and put pressure on them. But those people will usually not get the ongoing business after that. But if you build the trust, you give the right advice, you build the relationship to the point that people get to know you and they don't think of you as a salesperson anymore. They think of you as a friend or a person that they know. And if it's in the community, a member of the community, then it's so much better. And you will usually do business with them more than once. It won't be a one-off transaction, but it will keep on going, and you will get referrals out of it as well. And referrals is where the business is so extremely powerful, because the people that you get already trust you when they come to you. So it is about the question. Sorry.
I was going to say, I want to talk to you a little bit later on about how people can get strategically get referrals and therefore get more business. But you raised a really good point about asking questions. I think questions is the key to unlocking really powerful answers and actually finding out what your audience wants. But how do people formulate questions that actually do just that? Formulate questions that build relationships, build trust, and actually get people hooked into whatever it is that you are actually selling?
I think it's been really, really honest from the beginning, and asking the questions. Hey, look, what is it that you are after? What is it that you would want to do? And I'll give you an example, and it's not, I'll take names and content out of it because it's something that happened recently. But I was talking with the CEO of a real estate company to try and see if I can go in and do some training for that specific company. And we were sitting down, and they asked me about who I am and my background, and they wanted me to introduce me. And so I spent 2 or 3 minutes talking about myself, and then I stopped and I said, look, this is about myself, but in reality, what I need to know is, what is it that you guys would want to achieve exactly? Because there's a good chance that I might not have the right product for you and won't be able to help you, but if I do, I would love to. So what is it that you really are trying to achieve or would want to see happen? And the minute I asked that, and it's sort of an open question, it's not just a yes or no, then it has given the other side the opportunity to go, oh, this is what we would like to see, and then we can help them better. So it is about those open questions. Hey, what is it that you're after? What would you like to achieve? What is it that you're trying to solve with the stuff that you're trying to buy right now?
Do you know what? The stuff that you're sharing right now is absolute gold, and people are loving it in there on Facebook and LinkedIn. I can tell from the comments and all the love that I'm receiving. But guys, I'd really appreciate it if you're sitting there watching this, and if you could share it, that would be fantastic. It's not for me, it's because Giyora is sharing information that's actually going to help so many other business owners. And by you sharing this, you can inadvertently help somebody else actually grow their business, their mindset, their strategies. And it's all because you've shared this video where Giyora is actually sharing so much valuable information. So guys, do that person a favor, do your network a favor, and actually share this content with them. Gamden, welcome to the stream. He's just commented saying, how can you differentiate between selling and closing? Oh, I love that question.
It's really, really interesting, because there's so much hype, there's so much focus when people think about selling, about closing. And the funny thing is that when you build a relationship with somebody, you don't need to close. the sale will happen because they trust you. And all you will really need to do at one point is ask the question of, do they feel comfortable going ahead or making the transaction or doing whatever it is. And you don't need to force close them. I've been through tens of books on closing and the art of the close and the art of this and the art of the deal and the backside close and the front close and the one-legged close. But if you build relationship and trust, many times they'll actually close on themselves. So you don't need to focus on the close. You need to focus on helping, giving them suggestions, working with them that it's suitable for them. They trust you, they feel comfortable, and everything will fall into place. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, just on that note as well, like you mentioned about like building trust, and essentially once you have that good relationship in place, all you then got to do is say, hey, do you want to buy my stuff in the end? But do you feel like there's ever a point where people actually talk themselves out of a sale?
You mean with the salespeople giving too much information so the buyer walks out, or the buyers being so scared that they convince themselves not to buy?
A bit of both.
It is a combination. So there are times where a salesperson, and again, that comes back to talking too much, where a salesperson will over talk the sale and the buyer will walk away. I had I do a little bit of DIY with my house. That's why everything in my house is crooked. And I remember a few years ago I went to buy I can't remember if it was a drill or a sanding machine or so, whatever it was. And I went to the shop and I asked one of the guys some questions about the different tools or the differences between the tools. And he gave me the information, and I was ready to make a decision. But he kept on talking and kept on giving me information and kept on interrupting me that I decided that I don't want to buy. And I think that it's really, really important. So that's the first point about salespeople over talking that the buyers change their mind, is that we need to get to the point that we give the information, we ask the questions, and then we step back and we let the buyer.
How do you know, like, how do you know when it is too much information? Because obviously, as a business person, you're super passionate and you're pumped about what it is that you're selling. But like, are there specific signals that you can maybe read off people that can say, actually, I need to start taking a step back now and just let them absorb all the information?
I think you can see that people are getting a little bit agitated, so they'll start to play with things, or if they're standing, they'll walk from side to side. But it's also about the questions. So information. So this tool is that. This tool is that. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Do you need more information? No, excellent. Yeah. So which one do you feel comfortable with? And then really just asking those questions and letting them come with the solution instead of just really moving on and on and on and on with the information.
Amazing.
Does that clarify that?
Yeah, I think it does. But Gamden, let us know in the comments if you want further clarification. But yeah, for those of you who are watching right now, if you do have any questions around sales, building your mindset, building your confidence around it, or even if you're just not sure with something around sales, do comment below and we'll be sure to ask them, just like what Gamden did. Shaquille has just commented, if I'm no good at selling, how do I know how to identify a good salesperson? If I decide to employ someone to do it, that's such a good question. If I decide to employ someone to do it for me, how can you identify a good salesperson?
I think it's about so if it's somebody experienced, they will obviously have the background, and you can look at them and say, hey, look, they've done sales, this is their track record, they've proven themselves, I can take them in. If it's a new person that has never done sales, it's very, very hard to know. and it comes down to training them, to working with them, to making sure that they understand the process. There's no the interesting thing with sales is that there's no one way to do it. It's about personalities. It's about people. And some people are higher energy, some people are lower energy, but do they understand people? Are they able to make people comfortable with them? And I think that's the most important thing when you look at hiring salespeople. Is that person going to be a person that when they sit in front of a customer, they will irritate them, or they will not let them speak? Or is that person, will they have the ability to relate to the person, to ask questions, make them feel comfortable, and then work with them? Because it is about people. Sales is just about people. The products are secondary. It's all about people.
And you raised a really good point there about energy. And when I first started out in sales, and by the way, guys, if you're watching this thinking I'm not in sales, if you're in business, you're in sales. So when I first started out in sales, I used to think I had to be someone who's really ecstatic all the time, super pumped, super excited, and that's just not sustainable for me. So I'm so glad that you clarified the point, and actually that you don't have to be that extrovert in order to get the sales. But
No.
I wanted to clarify, what exactly do you mean by energy?
So it's about, it's a combination of the two things. The first one is, as a salesperson, you need to hold your energy. You need to be a positive person. You need to be a happy person. No, but if you walk into a sales situation and you're like, it's such a horrible day today, nobody would want to deal with you. So you have to walk in and you have to be happy, and you have to have that energy with you. But you also need to gauge the person in front of you. So if I was trying to sell to you, Rohini, and you are a 70-year-old person, and I come in and I'm all energized, and how are you today, and this is the best day, that's way too much energy. So I will need to slow everything down. But if I walk in and you're a person that jumps around from hand to head, then I will immediately need to adjust my energy to your energy so we can relate to each other. So it's there's our energy, the positive energy, the happy energy, but also adjusting it to the person who's across the table from us, or who we're going to have a chat with. It's a combination of those two things.
That's an effect called mirroring, isn't it? Where you're essentially mirroring what they do and how they act and how they speak, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah, mirroring is more about seeing how they sit and how they move their body and moving it the same way. But it's very similar with the energy as well. It's who they are. If I am a high energy person and somebody comes in and they speak very, very slowly, then I will get bored with them in a second. I'll go, I can't stand them. They're boring. But if I am a slow speaking person and somebody comes in and they're so full of energy and they just want to do things, I'll go, hey, I don't want to deal with you. You're scary. So it's adjusting to that personality of the person.
Exactly. That's such a great, valuable, undervalued piece of content there, I think, that actually people need to adjust to the person that they're talking to, because that's just good people skills. But a lot of people, they have blocks. I mean, I know what I did when it first comes to selling and this mindset around sales. I mean, to some people, it's almost a taboo word, sales. So what can we do to kind of overcome our blocks? Well, first of all, what can we do to recognize our blocks and then overcome them when it comes to selling?
So when you ask about blocks, it's about our mental blocks, the things that are stopping us from going into sales and doing the activity itself.
Yeah, I'm talking about stuff that absolutely, like, I believe we all have unlimited potential, but it's the stuff that's going on in here that prevents us from unleashing that potential.
Yeah. There's I'm trying to think of how to say it properly. with all of us, there's we stop ourselves because of our many times our fears and our lack of belief in ourselves.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I became very, very curious when I started training salespeople or real estate salespeople is, why is it that some of them will stay in the industry and will become successful, and
Yeah.
and some will leave? And by the way, and I don't know the statistics in the UK, but in New Zealand, statistically, 80% of the people that join the industry leave after 1 year, real estate sales. So
Oh,
it's an
wow.
extremely tough industry here. It's unlike in the UK. In New Zealand, it's a commission only industry, so no sales, no money. So very, very tough. And I became very curious as to how is it that some people can do it and some people cannot. And I looked at what my students were doing. I looked at some of the things that I was doing, and I realized that there's I call it the EAT method, and EAT stands for EAT, external, action, and thoughts. And I call it EAT because of those, but also because I realize whenever I feel unconfident and scared, then I want to go and eat something to feel a little bit better about myself. But I realized there's a million things and million different methods, but there's 6 things that I noticed that people do in order to help them overcome those mental blocks. And we don't have a lot of time, so I'll make it quick. But they are with the external. The first one is having support systems. So having the right people in our life that help us through the hard times, that can tell us, hey, you're doing great, and that help us, that they are positive. And I spoke in the beginning about my wife telling me that I should get into the industry because she saw the value in me, things that I didn't see. So that sort of support,
I think it's
managers that
also,
help.
I was going to say, I think just on that note as well, I think it's also important for people to tell you, actually, you suck at this. And
Yeah, yeah,
in a nice constructive way as well, because
yeah.
we can all easily surround ourselves with more like-minded, passionate kind of people who to say,
Mhm.
hey, you're great. But I think
Yeah.
it's equally just as important to surround ourselves with people, essentially mentors, that aren't afraid to tell us how to improve.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. There's support in terms of, hey, I'll help you and I will be there for you when things get tough. And there's support in terms of growing your business and adjusting. So those two, what you spoke about is something that I will. That is the second part. So the first part is really just the support people, but the second part is the accountability people.
Yeah,
The external people who keep you accountable to the things that we're supposed to do, but accountable to how we do it as well. And they are the ones who will say, hey, look, what you've done there, you could probably adjust it and change it and make it better. Or the way that you did it, that's not the right way. They are the ones who are more business, not support, but accountability and teachers. But
yeah,
those 2 types of people are very, very important that we have in our lives, because when we have them, we become more confident. It's easier to do something when you have people supporting you, and on the other side, when you have people keeping you accountable.
mhm,
It's really interesting with salespeople that in real estate, when you are self-employed, I have people who joined the real estate industry after they were employed for many years. And they were employed, they would get up every day at 7 in the morning, go to work, start at 9 or 8:30, work until 6 o'clock, and then go home. And they get into the industry, into real estate, and you are your own boss. Nobody tells you what to do. 3 or 4 months into the industry, they don't get out of bed before 10 o'clock because nobody keeps them accountable. So
mm,
having those accountability people will push us, and many times that will take us through those blocks that are stopping us. So that's in terms of external help or external people. The second part with with the action taking, we become more confident, and we feel better about ourselves when we have a plan and when we practice what we're supposed to do. Because when we start something new, and with sales, it's very much the same. We go, okay, well, what do I do right now? This is new. This is scary. I've never done this before. I don't know what to do. But if we sit down and we write a plan, we make a plan, we can go, right, well, this is step 1. I've done step 1, right? This is step 2. I've done step 2. And so having a plan helps us. And with the practice part, we go, right, I've done it, I've tried it, I practice it. Now I feel so much more confident about myself. And so that's the door knocking, the closing, if we want, the making phone calls. If we practice it, then we become better at it, and we feel better about ourselves, which makes us more confident. And the second part with action taking is about understanding that we need to take a step forward, that nothing happens until we take a small step forward, and it doesn't matter what it is, but it's taking a step forward. With my door knocking, I remember the first time I went door knocking on my own and how scary it was. I went out and I tried it, and it felt horrible, and I ran home and I tried it again and I couldn't get out of my car. And I learned that in door knocking, the hardest thing to do is to get out of your car. The minute you open the door and you stepped out of your car, you can keep on going. When people make phone calls, the hardest thing to do, cold calling, is to pick up the phone and make the first phone call. The minute you made the first phone call, it's easier to keep on going. But to force yourself to make the first one, this is really hard. So with this, just really the understanding of take a step forward towards whatever it is that is stopping you. And that will push you through. And the final part is really changing the way we think.
Yeah. You know, I 100% agree with you on that one. Guys, I would love it if you could share this stream, because those golden nuggets alone that have just been shared could absolutely transform somebody else's business within your network. So I would love it if you could share this video out to help to reach more people, to ultimately make a much bigger impact. We had a few questions coming in. So Gamden has asked, what is one advice for those who push hard to sell?
So is that an advice to the buyer what to do with when they get pressure being put on them, or is that an advice for those who want to push when they go into a sales situation, they try and close the deal in whichever way, and just to make the deal happen?
Well, let's talk about both.
Okay, so I think with the ones who are trying to push the sale, it's really, really important to understand that yes, you can push the sale, but those people will never deal with you again. So if you try to make a sale on somebody who doesn't really want to, and you start to become tricky, and you start to close, and you start to put pressure on people, yes, you will probably make the sale, but if they then figure out a way to get out of the sale, they will get out of the sale. And if they can't, the sale will go on, but you will never, ever see them again. And so it is really, really important to really give people the right advice and work with them, not push the sale. I think closing the sale, pushing the sale is something that was very, very common 80s, 90s, maybe early 2000s. People are so much more clever right now, so much more savvy. There's so much more information. All the sales training that all the salespeople watch on YouTube right now in order to understand how to close the sales, everybody watches them. So if you go in and you try and be a Grant Cardone on somebody, there's a very good chance that the person you're trying to close the Grant Cardone style have watched the Grant Cardone movies clips on YouTube and will understand what it is that you're trying to do. So I think building a relationship and really working with people rather than the hard sell is the right way to do. And again, you will get the sell in a hard sell, but you're probably not going to see that person again. You will not get referrals, and you will not get repeat business out of it. And what you want to do with sales is get the referrals, get the repeat business, because that's where the real business happens, not in the making the one-off sell.
I think there's a fine line between the hard sell of like, you need to buy this, otherwise you're gonna suffer from X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And actually saying, actually, I really do think you should buy this because it's going to help you with X, Y, Z. Both are still essentially hard selling. It's just one's a little bit more palatable.
Yeah. And there are times that you in sales you do need to put a little bit of pressure on people, because as human beings we need that. Sometimes we struggle to make the right decision, but to force the sale, that is something that really hurts us as salespeople.
Yeah, and that's the line that I was sort of differentiating. Giyora has commented, are salesmen born that way, or can anyone do it? I hear a lot of people saying he's born a salesman or he's born an entrepreneur. I hear that one a lot as well.
Yeah. It's really, really interesting. I've written a blog article on this, on that specific question. I think I think there's no, how shall I put it? There's no such thing as a born salesperson to the point that people think, wow, he can sell everything. But I think we are all born as salespeople. Each and every one of us has got the ability to sell. We all sell all the time. Every decision that we make in our life, from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, is us selling on ourselves or selling on somebody else. Selling is really just an exchange. That's all it is. And we are all good at it as human beings. We communicate. We are good at exchanging. So we are all naturally
born. Hold on a sec. You just raised a really good point there. And this is, I think Grant Cardone mentioned this quite a while back, especially in like he's got a book around sell or be sold. Selling, as he differentiates it, is not just about a money transaction, is it?
No.
Can you define that a bit more for us? That really blows my mind. That sales is not just about here's my money.
Selling is an exchange of everything. So selling is about a decision to do something. So if I get up in the morning and I go to the fridge and I have the choice to have a yogurt or a choice to have a chocolate, and I decide to take the chocolate because the chocolate makes me feel better, I sold myself on having a chocolate. If I go down the street and I meet somebody and say, hey, why don't you come and let's go have a cup of coffee and chat about what happened over the weekend, I just sold them on joining me. Selling is the exchange of everything that we do in our life. We focus on the exchange of here's my money, give me the product, or here's my money, give me the service. But everything that we do, communication, service, that's sales is what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff has commented earlier saying, I don't think of sales, I don't think as a salesperson, rather someone who is advising and helping. I've only just realized that. That's such an amazing realization. Jeff, I'd love to know, like, let me know in the comments, did you realize that as a result of the nuggets that Giyora was sharing today? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments. And he also just commented, very true. If someone comes out with can you handle more work, etc., straight away they have just lost me.
Yeah.
He's just commented saying, I sold myself to my wife.
Yeah, well, we all do that.
I love it. So you've kind of touched on this throughout the interview, and guys, I'd really encourage you to watch the replay because you're going to get so much more value off watching this a second time round. What is stopping us from being good at what we do?
Combination of things. I think we don't do enough of the things that we want to do. If anybody has ever Andre Agassi. I make the assumption that many of you would know the name, a tennis player, an American tennis player. He wrote a book, his autobiography. It's called Open. And he talks about how he became a very good or very successful tennis player because his father would force him to hit 1 million tennis balls every year. I think it was the number. I don't remember the exact number.
Oh wow, he
But
must have like mega strong wrists.
Yeah, yeah. But it was that repetition of just doing it again and again and again and again that got him into shape and made him become better at what he does. So repetition is super important. I think many of us give up really quickly when things become hard, and that's why we don't get good at it. We go, all right, well, that's too hard, let me try something else. So repetition, consistency, and doing things on regular basis, and obviously learning from our mistakes. We make mistakes all the time. I I don't think I have a day when I don't make a mistake and I go, stupid. So going, hey, mistake, that's fine, keep on going. So we become better through that repetition, the learning, and the consistency.
You know, I absolutely agree. Like repetition is key. I mean, think about it. In schools, they teach repetition. You learn something once, and you do it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But how can that be applied to someone who's attempting to sell their product or sell their service? And maybe that person they keep falling into the same trap or same mistake.
Yeah. So again, if we look at the three things, one is learning. So going out and going and analyzing what it is that you have done, or maybe taking an experienced person with you that can give you that feedback. Sales, as funny as it sounds, especially when you start, it is really a numbers game. When you start, when you have no connections, when you don't know a lot of people, it's just about making calls, meeting people and conversations, because sooner or later somebody will say yes. And that's what I do all the time still right now. I make phone calls every day to try and get in front of people and build relationships. So working through those things. So doing enough, but as you said, Rohini, learning from what we do. If we keep on making the same mistake and not changing, nothing will change. But if we go, right, this didn't work, why didn't it? Was I not asking questions? Did my energy come across wrong? Did I have the right product for what happened? Analyzing and then adjusting and improving.
Yeah, that's such a great point that you've made there about adjusting, recognizing actually where you've gone wrong, what could be better. Yeah, we've talked a lot about building relationships and actually how to build really quality relationships that actually lead to a new business. So, and I mentioned this before, I want to talk about how to get strategic referrals. And I think that kind of comes as part of the following up process, because they always say in sales that the money is in the close. But what about the follow-up? How can people follow up correctly and therefore get more referrals as a result of doing their business?
Yeah, it's about checking how things happen after the sales. I think there's so much focus on the sale and on the close, and not enough focus on after sales service, on what has happened after the sale has happened. Did the customer go home and did they know how to operate the product that they bought? Were they happy with it? Were they happy with the service? Following up. And so when I sold properties, I had a system where the people will buy the house will settle. That's when the keys get exchanged and the new owners become the owners. So on settlement day, I will give the new owners the keys and usually a gift. Sometimes I will, because people move, then I will meet them in the evening and give them dinner or give them pizza because they just don't have time. So they appreciate that. The day after they move in, a phone call, hey, how are things? Are there any issues, any problems with the house? A week after that, how have you settled? Do you have any issues? And then a month later, 3 months later, and then keeping on staying in touch. So it's about not being afraid to ask people how are they enjoying, or how is the product or service that they have purchased from us after they have purchased. So because you would rather that people, or that's the way I think about it, I'd rather people complain to me and tell me that what I have done is wrong and I have the opportunity to fix, than not ask the questions and then hear from about 100 people later on that I provide a rubbish service. So following up after, and that then makes them feel better. And that then also helps with the referral and getting the business onwards. So if they're happy after that, if they're happy with everything that we have done, we have then the right to ask them for a referral. If they know anybody, if there's anybody else that they know that we could help as well.
I was going to say, like, on that point, because a lot of salespeople say there's a strategic process to get in more quality referrals. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Again, it's about asking the right questions. So when I started selling real estate, I listened a lot to an American trainer by the name of Tom Hopkins. And he would say, after the sale has happened, you sit down with the buyer or the seller in the house, and then you ask them strategically, and not just do you know anybody that I could possibly do business with, but who do you know from maybe work or your neighbors or somebody that you're in the same club with, that that possibly I could help with, maybe mention names, and you become very, very specific, not just do you know anybody, because do you know anybody, that's massive, that's really big, and they can't think. But if we point to specific places, is there anybody in your work that has mentioned to you that they might be looking at selling or might need my product? Is there anybody in your gym that you have met and have spoken to that might have mentioned to you that they need the service that I provide? Or if you're selling to companies, with the groups of companies that you're working with, who have mentioned to you that they might need the same services as you. So, but being very focused with those questions rather than questioning the whole world, and I think that's very helpful with getting referrals out of people.
Wow, that's such quality advice about. Well, I just really appreciate everything that you shared with us today. But where can people find you and get in touch with you, and so that they can learn more about your sales and just connect with a like-minded, badass salesman?
Badass is probably the wrong way that I would, but my surname, I just did the weather person thing, and I had the blue spot on my head now. So my surname, so Giyora Barzilai or Gary Barzilai, just Google me. I think I'm the only one in the world that has this name, so it's very, very easy to find me. Information on my website, or Facebook as well. I'm more than happy to have chats with people and ask and help, really just because I want to help people, especially salespeople. So I'd love to help people if they want to help.
Fantastic. Guys, we're going to wrap it up here, but I really, really appreciate you joining us. From the comments and all the likes, and people are just loving what you've shared with us today, Giyora. But guys, make sure you join us same time next week. No, not the same time. Join us 12 p.m. UK time next Tuesday. We're going to be talking all about business strategy, mindset, and a bit about marketing as well. So make sure that you're there. It's going to be amazing. Giyora, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you. And Britt, I think you're doing an amazing job with your podcast and your live broadcasts. 12 o'clock. I'm getting tired. So just keep on doing it because it's amazing.
Awesome. Oh yeah, I forgot it's nearly midnight your time, isn't it? Because you're in New Zealand.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to let you get some rest, okay?
Thank you so much.